Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're starting a new project and a new series of videos where I'm going to go ahead and show you the process I'm taking to replace the stringers in this 1979 Centurion jet boat. So hang tight. As you saw, I went ahead and got the full interior removed from the boat. I have left the carpet in, which I'll get to in a second, but my next step is I need to remove this mock-up block, then I'll pull the carpet, and then after that I need to get the boat off of the trailer and back in between this lift and this back corner. But I stopped at this point because I wanted to talk to you about my stringers and how I discovered that one of them was bad and just really what happened to me on this setup. So I kept encountering thrust bearing failures on my engine, and I had the first initial thrust bearing failure. It ate up the bearing, put a bunch of metal in the oil. So I pulled the engine, rebuilt the engine, put it back in the boat. I ran it for the summer. I should have checked it again, but in this the next fall when I was getting the boat prepped to be put away, I realized that the thrust bearing had yet again got worn out and had too much thrust clearance. So I started digging into the issue, and I did have the pump still in the boat, and I visibly could see that my drive shaft on my PTO from the engine to the pump was at an unusual angle, and the U-joints were kind of off kilter. So after confirming that everything in the engine was fine clearance rise, I realized that I had some kind of forward pressure on the crankshaft, which killed my thrust bearing. Well, once I saw that PTO alignment issue with my U-joints, it was very clear that that was my issue. So from there, I started with this mock-up block, and I was going to recenter and remount the engine to correct that issue. You can see that I have all the mounts loose right now. I have the bolts here loose, so I have flexibility, and I put a laser level or a laser line up above the boat, and I was able to shoot a laser line down the center line of the pump shaft and the crank, and you could clearly see that the engine was off center. So what I did is I simply had a pry bar, and I was trying to shift the engine over, and I'm right here with the loose engine mount on the stringer with just a little bit of pressure, and I have no engine movement and no stringer movement. So then, as I was trying to get this engine straight, I came to this other side and did the exact same thing, and you can see that that stringer, the whole stringer is just flexing. And I do know that the wood is rotted out in a certain section. So once I found that, I didn't want to risk damaging another engine, so I just stopped altogether on trying to get the boat back together and parked it until I had time to come back now and get these stringers replaced. So what I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and get this mock-up block out of here, and I'll pull the rest of the carpet like I said, since the boat is already on the trailer, and then we're going to go ahead and see how much work it takes to get the boat off the trailer and ready for these stringers to be replaced. Honestly, that went much better than I was expecting. It was pretty straightforward. As you saw, I went ahead and raised the lift up, and I was able to back the trailer up over the lift and then use a combination of the floor jack and jack stands to lift the back of the boat up. I used the lift to suspend the front of the boat and went ahead and pulled the boat out. Now you can also see that since then I've went ahead and draped this plastic up here, and since I have open rafter ceiling, before I even put the boat in, I did cover the ceiling. And then I used some furring strips up the top and went ahead and just held in this 4mm plastic, and again, furring strips at the bottom. Now I'm eventually going to extend this out further, and the reason why I'm doing this is so I don't destroy the rest of my shop with dust while I'm grinding on this fiberglass. Now this is pretty overkill that I'm doing here, but when I'm done with this boat project, I will be stripping this car down and repainting it. so it's gonna dub as a paint booth for me. So it was worth the time and investment. And I'm fortunate enough back here where I have this fan, so I can use that to pull air through. So like I said, I went through and just took the time to get this taken care of now. Did the ceiling before I buried the boat in here, but now I got the boat set up. I got it on 3 points, so I got each rear corner is on a jack stand, and then I have one jack stand up in the front underneath the keel. Ignore these here. These jack stands are loose and they're just there for insurance while I'm crawling in and out of the boat. And as you can see, I pulled all the carpet out of the boat. I was hoping that I'd be able to save it, but that did not quite work out as planned. But now you can see that I got the boat here. Everything's pretty much stripped out of it. And before I go ahead and start ripping these stringers and center boards out, I'm going to pull some measurements of where my engine plates and mounts are at right now. Now, I'll have room to adjust this so I have the proper drive shaft angles in alignment, which is the whole reason I'm doing this. But I want to go ahead and get those measurements now so I have a good reference point. I may not use them on reassembling everything, but it's always good to know where it was at. So, like I said, that's the first order of business, and I'll pull those plates, I'll pull the engine mounts. I need to get the battery platform and where I had my Jetivator platform, get those pulled out, and get the center floor pulled out, which runs all the way up to the bow, and then I can start working on the stringers. Now for the stringers, since we have the carpet off, we can take a good look. And you can see here under the driver's seat on this stringer, you can see where the people have ran bolts in. And if you look down in there, the wood is just gone. It's rotted. There's nothing left. You can see they drilled a bunch of holes in the passenger side. They ground down the top and just left it raw wood. Now the wood in the passenger stringer is quite a bit better. But this one, you can see that the fiberglass casing on it is no longer even attached to the wood. It just moves free. And if I curl up here in the boat, you can see with this stringer that I can just give it a little pressure and it moves, versus this other one is pretty rock solid. So really, I mean, there's no way I'd go through all this work and only replace one, but I really just have one really bad stringer. I'm sure this other one has some bad parts too, but this one's, you know, it's no longer adhered to the bottom of the hull, and it's not even adhered to the fiberglass encasement, and the wood's rotted. So I need to go ahead at this point. I'm gonna have to set the camera down. I'm gonna pull some of those measurements. I'm gonna start cutting those boards out, and also I need to continue on with getting the glue and the old carpet cleaned up, so that way I have a nice starting point to work from. I'm trying a couple different methods to get that glue up. I'm going to go ahead and continue experimenting with those, and then I'll bring you back and let you know what I found to be the most effective and which worked best for me. It's been a couple days and I've been scraping glue far longer than I want to admit. Obviously, I just left it alone on the center boards of the floor and the stringers because I'm going to cut those out here pretty shortly. So I just focused on the outer sides of the hull. And the reason why I did the glue now, the scraping, because I didn't want to lay in a big mess after I cut everything out to get it cleaned up. Like I mentioned, it took me a bit to get it cleaned. but I have on the sides pretty much down to the bare fiberglass. And you can see up on the sides where I've cleaned the adhesive, but I've left it there. And I'll probably still clean a little bit further up on the sides, but for now my focus was just on the bottom of the boat. Now, I use several different things to get the glue up, and unfortunately this boat had several interiors over its life, so the adhesive was pretty thick. And I actually found that this oscillating saw with just that flat blade worked great on getting the bulk of the glue off without digging into the glass or causing any damage. I found that this blade would actually start to heat up and kind of melt the glue, and it would stick to it, and I would just keep running this down, and that got most of it. And then after that, I would just simply switch to a razor blade scraper and scrape it quite a bit. And after that, I would soak it in this Goo Gone, let it soak for a while. Then I'd use a combination of the wire brush and a brass wire brush on this drill. Now, with the brass brush versus the steel, it's pliable and soft enough where it wasn't digging into the fiberglass and damaging it, but it would get the gooey adhesive that was on there for the carpet off. And honestly, it took a combination of all those tools and a lot of elbow grease. It was a dirty, messy job, and I'm not looking forward to doing it up further in the bow and continuing on the sides, but I need to get it done because I want a fresh base for the glass work, because I will be changing a little bit after I do the stringers and adding a little bit more support into this boat. That's going to wrap up this first video of the jet boat project. Do subscribe to the channel. I want you guys to be able to see the next videos that are coming out. The next one that I'm going to be making, I'll be cutting out the stringers in the center floor of the boat, and I'm going to walk you through that process. So again, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit the like button, give me your comments below. Thank you for watching.